What is up, Janksters? It's your boy Graham, also known as Hambox42 on the internet, and today we are talking about Tom Bombadil. That's right, the crazy forest person with godlike power has been represented on a Magic card, and which will be available in June, and I'm actually kind of excited about it. So the card is a 4/4 for Wooburg, so that's it, it's 5 mana, 1 of each color. Legendary creature, God Bard. So he's actually a god creature type, which kind of blows my mind. I think that's neat. As long as there are 4 or more lower counters among sagas you control, Tom Bombadil has hexproof and indestructible. Whenever the final chapter ability of a saga you control resolves, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a saga card. Put that card onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. This ability triggers only once each turn. It is definitely a bummer that it only triggers once, because holy cow. What this is allowing you to do is chaining sagas into sagas. So the moment you've finished with a saga, and you hit chapter 3 on a saga, Bombadil triggers, you go grab another one and just keep it going. Now, mechanically this is interesting because sagas are these really cool enchantments that give you some really neat effects, and they're all a little bit different from one another, but the way that being able to chain them together is really cool, especially with the Kamigawa sagas that turn into creatures. That way you're getting presence on board while you're also going and reloading and grabbing another one. Also, could you imagine if you spin like the Modern Age or some other like 2 mana, you know, whatever, utility saga into like a Kami War? Sweet. Like, that's going to be pretty awesome. So the mechanical power is definitely here. There are also effects like, what is it? Battle of Frost and Fire, that is board wipe on a saga. You also have Binding the Old Gods, which is removal on a saga. And there are a ton. Sagas have... It's funny, they were actually introduced into Magic not too long ago. It was like 4 or 5 years with the most... Not the most recent Dominaria set, but the one prior to United. The just Dominaria set. They were introduced then, which... Wait, that was like... maybe 6 years ago now? Anyway, I'm getting old and I don't like to think about that. But regardless... They're relatively new as far as Magic is concerned, but they were such a smash hit that they've been printed in a ton of sets. And so as a result, we have a lot to choose from, even though they're, relatively new to the game. So I love that. So the way you could build a Tom Bombadil deck in a lot of different ways, but at the end of the day, you want a lot of enchantments in there. Well, sorry, sagas specifically. So that's neat. From a flavor perspective, the thing that I adore about this is that Tom Bombadil is a storyteller. He's a bard. I mean, the bard creature type is very fitting. He is always singing tales to people. Honestly, the chapter in which he's introduced in the Fellowship of the Ring is easily my least favorite chapter of that entire book. Kind of by a lot. And it's funny because the more I look at it, intellectually, I enjoy the character of Tom Bombadil, but being actually in the room with him when he refuses to shut up and everything is just like laid out in excruciating detail, it can be a little tedious. And as a result, I don't really love that about this guy. He seems like the kind of guy, I'm really glad, like I want him on my side. I like him out there doing his thing, but I really don't want to be in the room with him. That's been my experience. And maybe it's because I identify with him a little too hard. I realize for most of my friends, I'm the guy who doesn't shut up, and I'm sorry about that. It just is what it is. So I don't know, so the idea of when he finishes a saga, that's the other thing, sagas flavorfully are the retelling of an ancient or epic story. You know, like Elspeth conquers death. It is the retelling of Elspeth conquering death and returning to the world of the living. And you'll notice in the artwork, it depicts, the artworks for all the sagas, they depict artistic representations of the events. You know, it's tile mosaics or wood carvings or paintings, like that are visibly like oil paintings. Like they're not like magic artwork that happens to be a painting. It's like that is trying to present a real thing. Like it's presenting, anyway, you get the idea. Sagas are telling tales of the past. And so Tom Bombadil here, mechanically, is that guy who doesn't stop telling you stories. Like, whenever he's done with one, he goes and gets another one and starts in on that. And mechanically, that is amazing. And I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to play really well on the battlefield too, because when one of your sagas runs out, that's usually it. You're usually done. But in this case, just keep on cruising. And yeah, I get a big kick out of that. It'll also be really interesting to see if Goldberry, the elven maiden who lives with Tom Bombadil, is represented in the Lord of the Rings set. As of this recording, we haven't seen all the cards yet. Actually, Bombadil was just spoiled as of yesterday, as of this recording. So who knows? You know, they may be there. It may be. Actually, what I want to see is, I think it would be fitting if Satsuki the Living Lore gets reskinned as Goldberry. I think that would be very fitting. So Satsuki the Living Lore is a green-white 1/3 human druid, although that creature type doesn't fit in any event. But she's all about sagas. She boosts sagas. You can tap to put a lore counter on each saga you control as a sorcery, or whenever they die, you choose one, return target saga or enchantment creature you control to its owner's hand, or return target saga card from your graveyard to your hand. So this is clearly a Sagas Matter legendary creature from Kamigawa, the most recent trip to Kamigawa, who's pretty cool. Like, this is a really neat card, and I've wanted to build a deck featuring Satsuki the Living Lore for a long time. The problem is, running Satsuki in Commander, you're limited to only green and white spells, or, you know, and as a result, the green and white sagas are all you have to work with. There's some good ones, but a lot of them that really stand out as being super powerful have black or red in them. So being restricted and not having access to those really bites. That said, Tom Bombadil all of a sudden fixes that problem by giving you a 5-color creature that also cares about sagas that you can put in your command zone, and all of a sudden you can go just absolutely bananas with that. That said, I have run Saga decks in, and so I'm specifically thinking Commander. Tom Bombadil is clearly the 5-color commander of this set. It almost feels like Wizards has some kind of quota where, like, with every new set they drop, there needs to be at least one 5-color commander in there. Like, we see that all the time. Like, is there any reason Kyodai, the Spirit of Kamigawa, needed a 5-color activation? You know, it could have been a mono white dragon and it would have been just fine, but they gave it a 5-color activation. I suppose you could make an argument that, like, as the Spirit of Kamigawa, it, like, encompassed all things and therefore could touch all the lands or whatever. Like, sure, fine, but I don't know. It felt like they were checking a box with that one. You know, I didn't enjoy that, and it felt very much like, well, we need a 5-color commander identity. And Tom Bombadil feels kind of like it's filling that same box. That said, Tom Bombadil is also a being of immense power. Like, Tom Bombadil is an incredibly powerful creature who has ties to the land. So, him being 5 colors, I'm kind of okay with. So, I don't know. I think, you know, it kind of fits. It's kind of okay. I'm also really surprised that it's in the main set. You know, this is a mythic from the main set. This isn't part of the Commander product, which it easily could have been. I think that would have been fitting. Although, then we would have another situation where Tom Bombadil is relegated and not included in the mainline property of a Lord of the Rings project, which is kind of funny. Also, for the record, like, this gives me an opportunity to step on a little bit of a soapbox, and I'm gonna take it for a second. When the Lord of the Rings films came out, I know a lot of people were really upset that Tom Bombadil wasn't included, but like I was saying earlier, dude is really tedious and frustrating. Like, I'm glad they didn't try to adapt him to screen. I think it would have been a failing prospect, and it would have been everybody's least favorite part of the movie. So him being cut from the Fellowship of the Ring film, I think was very smart. Just, anyway. That was not really here or there, but I thought you know, me from, like, I don't know, what was that now, 20 years ago? I'm gonna get on that soapbox because I feel like I should. In any event, this card's great. I think it's really fun. The idea of looping sagas is something that's really neat, and you could be very careful about which sagas you run to really maximize this. Well, but at the same time, you want to have a critical mass of them. So what I would definitely do is I would run Tom Bombadil in a, oh, you know what? I'm realizing another flavor win on this card. Because you don't really pick the next saga, you know, you just reveal until you hit the next one. That really represents Tom Bombadil's chaotic nature. Because that's the other thing about him. You know, there's a point where, you know, the Council of Elrond in the books, they ask, like, wait, should we just, like, entrust Tom Bombadil to take care of the ring? Like, he can guard it and Sauron couldn't touch him. You know, like, they just think, everybody kind of acknowledges, like, Tom Bombadil is equally as powerful as Sauron, if not significantly more so. It would be safe in his keeping, right? And Gandalf is like, nope, absolutely not. That's a terrible idea because we can't trust Bombadil to actually maintain it. Like, he's just as likely to pitch it away on a whim. Like, he's not going to get corrupted by it, but he also might just not care and lose track of it, you know? And so the idea that he's this chaotic force who's just kind of doing his own thing. Like, he's nice, he's not gonna hurt you, but he's just kind of very ambivalent to the world around him. That kind of makes sense. Like when he's rambling on, when one saga concludes and he goes and grabs another one, it's just whatever comes to his mind. It's just whatever's on the top of your deck. Like whatever the next saga is, that's the one he'll pick up and go with. So it could be hyper valuable, it could be super useful, or you could hit the board wipe at just the wrong time and be really bummed, you know? I think it's fun. That's the other thing, you put it onto the battlefield. You don't, it's not an if, it's not a may, you just do this. I kind of love that. So I'm gonna have fun building Tom Bombadil. This looks to me like a really fun 5-color commander that can result in some really wacky board states. And that's just a good time as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, thank you so much for checking out this episode of the Overthinking MTG podcast. I appreciate it very, very much. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I'll catch you on the next one.